Beauty, fame, a multi-million-dollar mansion, a private jet, 3 blonde-haired boys who call her mom, and a husband, once a rising NFL star, now a powerful executive who seemed to love her deeply. But in July 2023, that perfect picture shattered, because behind the lavish gates and those smiling Instagram posts, there were secrets, lies, affairs, and one message that changed everything: kill him. Just the 2 words, a simple text, but they opened the door to something far darker than anyone could have imagined. Because when that message was discovered, it didn't just wreck a marriage, it triggered an international investigation, 3 arrests, and a media firestorm that hasn't died down since. This is the story of Lindsay Shiver, former beauty queen, mother of 3, and the woman at the center of an alleged plot to kill her husband. And it all started with a smile and ended in a jail cell in the Bahamas. Let's go back to the beginning. While studying at Auburn, Robert met Lindsay Shirley in a physical education class. She was stunning, confident, charismatic, a former beauty queen, Miss Houston County 2005, and a cheerleader. They hit it off quickly, dated throughout college, and on March 6, 2010, they tied the knot. From the outside, they looked like a storybook couple, the kind of love people envy and admire. After graduation, the Shivers settled down in Thomasville. Their home, a $2.5 million estate, sprawling over 7,800 square feet with 7 bedrooms, 7 bathrooms, and 4 acres of land. It wasn't just real estate, it was a statement. But they didn't stop there. They bought a second property on Abaco Island in the Bahamas, a dream getaway where the family could escape the spotlight. And with a share in a private jet, getting there was never an issue. Lindsay embraced the role of a Southern housewife, raising their 3 blonde sons, throwing lavish parties, and maintaining the picture-perfect image. Her Instagram was a curated gallery of beach photos, well-dressed kids, and captions filled with gratitude and love. They had it all, or so it seemed. By 2022, cracks began to show. During a family trip to the Bahamas, Robert happened to glance at Lindsay's Apple Watch. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was instinct, but what he saw left him stunned. Messages from an 18-year-old girl Lindsay claimed had somehow snuck into their vacation home. Robert confronted her. There were arguments, regret, tears, but for the sake of their sons, they decided to work through it. Still, Lindsay's behavior changed. She started taking more solo trips to their Bahamas house. She stayed longer, she grew distant. Robert's gut told him something wasn't right. So he did what many suspicious spouses do. He hired a private investigator, and that changed everything. In early 2023, the private investigator came back with photos. Clear, undeniable images of Lindsay, now 36, intimately spending time with a 28-year-old bartender named Taryn Adrian Bethel. Adrian worked at Grabber's Bar and Grill on Great Guana Key, just a short distance from the Shivers Island home. The photos showed them together, laughing, holding hands, unmistakably close. Robert confronted Adrian, but instead of an argument, there was sarcasm. "Thanks for taking care of my wife," he reportedly said. Then on April 5, 2023, Robert filed for divorce. His grounds: adultery. He sought full custody of their children, sole ownership of the mansion, the truck, the furnishings, and even requested a restraining order against Lindsay. The gloves were off, but Lindsay wasn't backing down without a fight. The very next day, she filed a countersuit. Her allegations, emotional and physical cruelty from Robert, she claimed she no longer felt safe in their home. And so began the he said, she said battle. Robert argued that Lindsay was capable of working. After all, she had a degree in marketing. Lindsay fired back, saying she was a stay-at-home mom and couldn't just go out and find a job. She also accused him of cutting her off financially, locking her out of their accounts, and keeping the children from her for extended periods. Things weren't just getting ugly, they were turning toxic. And that toxicity made its way into the police records. Between February and April of 2023, 911 dispatchers received multiple calls from both Robert and Lindsay. Possessions, power. On February 20th, Robert asked police to escort him to their home in Georgia so he could retrieve his phone. Lindsay had cut it off. He was afraid she might try to trap him the moment he walked through the door. She might call the police and scream that she's being killed, he told the dispatcher, just to set me up. Then came April 12th, another call. This time Robert said an envelope had been left in his mailbox. Inside, a USB drive containing private photos of Lindsay from a recent trip to the Bahamas. The same package was also sent to his parents' home. No return address, just photos. Someone was sending a message. On April 30th, Robert called 911 again. Lindsay, he claimed, had tailed his mother's car trying to find the kids. She had made threats, erratic behavior. Even Lindsay's own parents were reportedly concerned about her mental health. Bodycam footage from the responding officers showed his mother saying, "She's not answering anyone. We truly think she might have killed herself." Then came July 16th, 2023. It was supposed to be a family vacation. Lindsay and Robert, still living under the same roof despite being divorced, had agreed to travel with the kids to the Bahamas. But by now, trust had evaporated. Robert told police Lindsay had planned to abandon the kids and sneak off with her boyfriend on his private jet. He was adamant Lindsay was not going. He told her she wasn't coming. There was a confrontation. Police were called. Once again, no charges were filed. In the end, Lindsay still made it to the Bahamas. And then, without anyone realizing, it was all about to turn into a murder investigation. All because of a break-in at a beach bar. It all started with a break-in. Just a routine investigation, at least. That's what Bahamian police thought when they arrived at Grabber's Bar and Grill, a beachfront restaurant where Adrian Bethel, Lindsay Shiver's alleged boyfriend, worked as a night manager. But something wasn't right. There were no clear signs of forced entry, no shattered windows. But officers suspected it was an inside job, someone with a key or at least familiar with the place. So as part of standard procedure, they checked Adrian's phone. And that changed everything. On that phone, police accidentally uncovered a string of encrypted and deleted messages, some of which had recently been recovered. They weren't about the break-in, they were worse. Screenshots revealed Lindsay, Adrian, and a third man, Farron Newbold Jr., 29, reportedly a friend of Adrian, engaged in a disturbing group chat. The most damning message. Lindsay had sent a photo of Robert, her husband, taken at Grabber's just days earlier. The caption, "Kill him." Those two words sent immediate alarm bells. Was it a joke, an outburst, or an order? Investigators weren't about to take chances. They alerted U.S. authorities. Robert Shiver was contacted and immediately evacuated his children from the Bahamas, flying straight back to Georgia. The threat was real. And the evidence was mounting. Authorities dug deeper. Phone records, travel data, message history. They began piecing together what appeared to be a murder-for-hire plot, allegedly orchestrated by Lindsay to have Robert killed while on a family vacation. And if not for a random break-in investigation, they might have gone through with it. On July 21, 2023, Bahamian police made their move. All three suspects, Lindsay Shiver, Adrian Bethel, and Farron Newbold Jr., were arrested. It was a shocking turn. A former beauty queen, a cheerleader, a Southern mom of three, now handcuffed and charged with conspiracy to commit murder. For 19 days, Lindsay was held inside Fox Hill Prison in Nassau, one of the most notorious detention centers in the Caribbean. A place known for overcrowding, harsh conditions, and violent treatment. This was no longer a vacation. Her family was stunned. They insisted it was all a misunderstanding, that Lindsay was incapable of doing something like this. They posted her bail $100,000, and she was eventually released on August 9, 2023, under strict conditions. She had to wear a GPS ankle monitor, report regularly to the police, and most critically, remain in the Bahamas. Adrian and Farron were also granted bail, $20,000 each, under similar restrictions. No contact with each other, no travel, and no communication with Robert Shiver. But this is where things got stranger. In one of their earliest court appearances, observers noticed Lindsay and Adrian whispering and laughing in the courtroom, giggling like teenagers despite being co-defendants in a murder conspiracy case. They weren't supposed to speak, and yet there they were, exchanging glances, smirking, acting like nothing had happened. Was it nerves, or were they just that confident? Back in the U.S., Robert tried to shield his children from the chaos. He hadn't told them about the arrests, or that their mother was accused of trying to have him killed. He just wanted to protect them for now. But the tension was still very much alive. In December 2023, Lindsay returned to court with a request. She wanted permission to go home for the holidays to Alabama to stay with her parents. Not Georgia, not near Robert and the boys, just back to U.S. soil. The judge granted the request, despite Robert testifying under oath that he feared for his life and did not want her back in the country. Lindsay, still wearing her ankle GPS monitor, complied with all restrictions and quietly returned to the United States. She didn't answer many questions, but in one brief clip she was seen smiling when reporters called out, "Do you have anything you want to say to the boys? Are you excited to be going home?" No words, just a tight-lipped smile. A flicker of something, guilt, defiance. No one could say for sure, but the drama wasn't over yet. Just hours after returning to the Bahamas from her holiday trip to the U.S., Lindsay faced another terrifying ordeal. Someone broke into her temporary residence while she was asleep. According to reports, the intruder scaled the building, broke in through the balcony door, and stole valuable jewelry and around $200 in cash. Thankfully, Lindsay's bedroom was locked, but 2 other bedrooms were ransacked. Was it random or something more targeted? No suspects were named. But Lindsay, already under GPS surveillance, facing potential years behind bars, now had one more reason to fear for her safety. As the legal process plays out, one looming question remains. What really happened between Lindsay and Robert Shiver? Was it a marriage gone wrong, a moment of madness? Or was it something darker, planned, deliberate, and nearly carried out? Did Lindsay confess? That's when things got complicated. In court, her defense attorney insisted she had never confessed to anything. The infamous "kill him" text, they argued, was nothing more than a vent, a moment of frustration, not a real threat. But prosecutors pushed back hard. They read excerpts from the official affidavit in which Lindsay allegedly told investigators, "Did you tell Taryn, Bethel, and Farron Newbold that you wanted to kill your husband?" "Oh, yes." "Did Taryn Bethel say he wanted to kill your husband?" "Oh, yes." 2 admissions, on the record. This wasn't frustration, it was intent. And if the court sides with the prosecution's version of events, Lindsay could face up to 60 years in a Caribbean prison. Not a slap on the wrist, not probation. 60 years, so where does that leave things now? Lindsay is back in Alabama, living with her parents and awaiting trial. She still hasn't seen her children since the arrest. She accuses Robert of blocking visitation, even supervised visits. Robert argues he's protecting the kids from someone accused of trying to kill him. So, who's telling the truth? The divorce is still ongoing. The custody battle is tense. And the criminal case, well, that's scheduled to go to trial on March 4, 2024. But one thing is clear, the dream marriage, it's over. And the woman who once had it all. She may have thrown it all away with a single deadly message. March 4, 2024. The date is circled on the calendar, not just for Lindsay Shiver, but for Robert, their 3 young sons, and 2 men caught up in either a deeply serious plot or a dangerously misunderstood moment. And yet, even before a jury hears a single word, the consequences have already begun. Robert has moved on, publicly. In September 2023, just 2 months after the arrest, Robert was spotted with Savannah Chrisley, yes, the Savannah, the reality TV star. By November, the two had officially gone public on Instagram, smiling hand in hand, a fresh start. Sure, it sparked gossip. But for Robert, perhaps it was something deeper. A reclaiming of life after nearly losing it. Meanwhile, Lindsay was trapped in limbo. A constant court appearances, ankle monitor checks, and a life stripped of basic freedoms. No passport, no contact with her children, no answers. And for those who once knew her, the sorority sisters, old neighbors, the PTA moms. Many wonder the same thing. How did we go from Southern Belle to murder suspect? On paper, the prosecution's case looked pretty airtight. They had messages, photos, and what they claimed were verbal confessions, in which Lindsay allegedly confirmed she wanted her husband dead. And two co-conspirators ready to help make it happen. They even pointed to motive. Backhand index pointing right jealousy. Backhand index pointing right control. Backhand index pointing right potential financial gain from a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio. What was Lindsay's defense? It all came down to context. Her legal team argued she was vulnerable, emotionally hurt, mentally exhausted and enraged, that she never intended to harm Robert, and that the "kill him" text wasn't a command. It was an outburst. In other words, she vented, they overreacted. But here's the problem: when venting includes sending a photo of your husband to two men, one of whom you're romantically involved with. Prosecutors argued that crosses the line, especially when it happened during a family vacation in the Bahamas. And there's another layer to this story, one that hasn't been talked about much. 3 boys caught in a storm they never asked for. A mother accused of trying to kill their father. A father shielding them from truths no child should have to bear. In court documents, Lindsay claims Robert has blocked the kids from seeing her, even during supervised visits. She says she's being punished, emotionally exiled. That he's using fear to sever their mother-child bond. Robert, for his part, insists he's acting in their best interests, protecting them from trauma, confusion, and danger. There are no easy answers, only painful trade-offs. The court will ultimately decide custody, visitation rights, and the relationship Lindsay will have with her sons, if any. But one thing is clear: even if she's declared innocent, this family is already broken. What happens if she's convicted? Well, Fox Hill Prison is probably not a place you want to end up. Located in Nassau, it's been condemned by human rights groups for severe overcrowding, poor sanitation, and lack of medical care. Inmates often share a 6x10-foot cell with several others, no mattresses, and just a bucket for a toilet. If found guilty, Lindsay could face up to 60 years in conditions like these. Adrian and Farron, same charges, same risks. So far, all 3 remain out on bail, monitored, restricted, and barred from contacting each other or Robert. Prosecutors are building their case. Defense attorneys are scrambling. And the media. They're waiting, because this is not just a legal battle. This is a tabloid storm. There's a reason stories like this grip us so tightly, because they turn the familiar into the unimaginable. We've all seen those perfect couples in photos. Smiling faces on Instagram, family pictures on the beach, anniversary congratulations, but behind those pictures, what else is really going on? Control, infidelity, secrets. That's why this story isn't just a scandal. It's a cautionary tale about how appearances can be deceiving, and how love can quickly turn into rage. At first, Robert and Lindsay were college sweethearts. He was a football player, she was a cheerleader. The royal family of Auburn University. They had a multi-million-dollar home, a private jet, a fairy tale life, but fairy tales don't always last. And sometimes they end not with heartbreak, but with handcuffs. Here's the hardest part. We don't know if Lindsay is guilty. Only the court can decide that. But what we do know is someone somewhere is plotting, and someone else almost lost their life because of it. and it happens more often than you think. According to FBI statistics, contract killings aren't just fiction. From 2012 to 2022, there were over 800 recorded cases in the U.S. alone, most involved spouses or lovers. In nearly 40% of those cases, the mastermind was a woman. That's the scary part. Because that means the person who wants you dead. It could be the one who once swore to love you forever. So where does this story go from here? Lindsay's trial is scheduled for later this year. If convicted, she could spend decades behind bars. If acquitted, she still faces the wreckage of the past. Loss of custody, ruined reputation, and a marriage beyond repair. Robert. He's rebuilding a new relationship, a future that hopefully doesn't involve looking back. But who's the real victim? 3 boys, young, innocent, forever marked by a summer that shattered their family. Maybe Lindsay was venting, maybe she meant it. But no matter what the verdict says, the damage is done. If you found this story compelling, like the video. Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe. We'll be bringing you more true crime stories. More lies, more secrets, more justice. Because behind every perfect photo, there's always more than meets the eye. Until next time, stay safe. And never ignore the silent warnings. They might just save your life.